Hello, everybody. Happy National Engineering Month. I think you could have probably guessed what a topic is this month. It's engineering, because again, National Engineering Month. So we're really excited to have a career panel today focused on this field. So how today will work, if you've never been to one of our events before, essentially we have three panelists that work in the healthcare field, specifically in the engineering part of the healthcare field, and they will do an introduction into who they are and what they do in their job. So they all have three different types of jobs in the engineering field. You get to hear about all of them over the course of the next hour. So they will all talk about themselves first, and then we will have an open Q&A period after. So if you have any questions, feel free to put them in like the Q&A feature of the Zoom webinar, and we'll try to get to as many as we can at the end of the event. As you can see, we are recording the event, so again, just try not to do any loud noises or anything that will disrupt the recording. And if you are here for the certificate program, as long as you've logged in to Zoom using the same email you registered for the event with, that'll count as your attendance. So we'll just take Zoom straight from there. So you have to do that. And then the second part is you will have to do some of our Zoom polls. We'll have a Zoom exit poll at the end, and Trisha's about to launch our Zoom welcome poll. So the Zoom welcome poll is just asking you if you've come to one of our events before. Do you like computer science? Do you like engineering? It's okay if you don't. Again, we'll hopefully change your mind. So Trisha's launched that. We'll have everybody maybe 30 seconds to do that. But in the meantime, we might as well slowly start the event so we can get to the longer Q&A portion. So Kurt, I believe you are up first. So whenever you want to take over screen share, you can take over and start talking about your cool job at UHN.
Hi, everyone. My name is Kurt Castro, and I am a biomedical engineering technologist working at the medical engineering department for UHN. I'm currently covering both Toronto General and Toronto Western Hospitals. A little about myself. Sorry. I was born and raised in Toronto, Ontario, and I have been working at UHN with the medical engineering department for about 5 years, both as a student and as a full-time employee. And my hobbies include playing basketball, volleyball, road cycling, uh, and having fun, I guess. So my program was the Biomedical Engineering Technology program at Centennial College, which has an optional co-op field. So uh, through this program, I was able to do a co-op at UHN, and I worked 3 terms before graduating. And by the time I finished work or school, I was able to find a job here at UHN, thankfully. So that was a good time for me. And this is a Ontario College Advanced Diploma. A little bit about biomedical engineering technology. We are responsible for the safe maintenance and repair of medical equipment and systems used within the hospital. So that includes troubleshooting, performing maintenance checks, installing new medical equipment in clinical areas, anything of the sort. Anything that a patient's hooked up to, that is something that a biomed is in charge of. A week in the life of a biomedical engineering technologist would be preventive maintenance. So biannually, annually, we do corrective maintenance and respond to work calls within the hospital. So in the operating rooms, ICUs, emergency departments, wherever in the hospital that uh, if equipment's not working, they will give us a call and let us know what's going on. Something's broken. Audits of equipment and systems on clinical floors. So trying to find problems in clinical areas. From there, we also document equipment and work orders on our online database. We do training on other varying devices, so that could be with the vendors uh, or on our own time. We do our own learning every day, I guess. So that would include us collaborating and assisting vendors and service techs that visit the hospital and we also do mentoring for co-op students as well. Uh, one of the projects that medical engineering is involved with is the Project Aspire, which is a new, essentially that there's a new 15-story patient and surgical tower to be built at Toronto Western. Within this hospital, it's going to be a new clinical area, so medical engineering is involved with preparing the equipment list. We're involved with the architectural design of the operating rooms, the designs of where all these equipment would be placed, and depending on what the surgeons would like, and um, procurement of these equipment for the new tower. So this involves in the operating rooms, ICUs, and patient rooms as well.
Perfect. Thank you, Kurt. Really cool to learn about Project Aspire. Roa, if you are ready, feel free to start screen sharing.
Okay, perfect. So hi everybody. As Ornella already mentioned, my name is Roa Shanshal. I am a biomedical research engineer at the Guided Therapeutics Lab at UHN. And I guess I'll get into it. I'll get right into it. But yeah, UHN Guided Therapeutics Lab at the Princess Margaret Cancer Research Institute, to be clear. My background is I come from Milton, Ontario, Little Milton. I've been working at GTX for the past 6 months. So I started in September. I essentially like took a year off from school to do this co-op. And so instead of going back to do my fourth year, I started working at the lab, and I'm going to be wrapping up in April. In terms of my hobbies, I love sketching, riding my bike through farm roads, and taking long walks. The photo that you see, I don't know if you can see my cursor, but the photo of the farms in Milton, that's like, that wasn't me going on a bike ride, but this was like the view from the car, but essentially what I would see if when I do go on those bike rides. And then the other photo is actually me working at the lab, which I'll be talking all about. So I am right now a fourth year software and biomedical engineering student at McMaster. I'm part of the Integrated Biomedical Engineering and Health Sciences program, which is a really cool program because it essentially combines the Faculty of Engineering and the Faculty of Health Sciences at McMaster. It's a integrated program, as it says in the name. But it's, I'm not only like working with at like one kind of engineering, which for me is software. Like I'm not just doing software courses, but I'm also learning about anatomy and I'm learning about biology. So it's really cool to see the intersection of those two fields, and it's right up my alley. I find it really interesting. And so after I graduate, which I will be graduating in 2027 because I'm in a 5-year program, and I took this year off to do co-op, so I'll have like 2 more years to come back to, but I will be earning a Bachelor of Engineering and Biomedical Engineering. So if anybody's interested, I'm all up for questions about my program. And then this is me posing with Senator William McMaster at McMaster University. He has a statue on campus. So, getting right into what I am doing at the lab at Princess Margaret. So, at our lab, the overall research goal, there's a bunch of like smaller research groups working at the lab. Me and a couple of other students, we work under Dr. Michael Daly, and we work specifically on a 3D fluorescence-based imaging system. And to explain in like simply and briefly how the system works. Essentially, you have oral cancer tumors. When oral cancer tumors are resected, sometimes surgeons have trouble determining the depth that they're at. So what we do is we inject a contrast agent or a fluorophore into the tissue, which accumulates in the tumor specifically. And then when we shine light on it, that tumor fluoresces. And then that fluorescent light, we're able to collect and get fluorescence images. But that still doesn't give us like that 3D depth that surgeons are looking for. And so that's where spatial frequency domain imaging, which is something that I've gotten to know in a lot of detail over the past 6 months, that's where that part comes in. So the idea is we're shining different patterns of light onto the tissue, and those different patterns are allowing us to image into different depths into the tissue. And then based off of that, we can get essentially like cross sections of the tumor that we can then feed into our deep learning algorithm and get our 3D depth map based off of that. So it's been really cool to see like how all of these pieces fit together and getting to know each step very like in a lot of detail over the course of my co-op. In terms of my week in the life, I'm really lucky because it's a hybrid type of situation. So like I said, I live in Milton, so the commute is like an hour long. So thankfully, I only have to come into the lab 3 days a week. The other 2 days I work from home. But it's a really interesting type of environment because my supervisor really makes an effort to get all of the co-op students to be super involved and to just learn a bunch of things. Like sometimes we do things that don't really have anything to do with the research that I'm doing, but it's just a learning opportunity that I get to partake in, which is really interesting. So we usually do morning lab meetings every single day. We'll have lunch at noon. Oftentimes we'll have things called lunch and learns, which happen every Thursday, where we get to sit and like hear what other people in the lab or in other labs in the building are working on, which is really interesting because you get to see like we're all working to treat cancer and to cure cancer, but it's interesting to see like what everybody in the building is getting to work on and how all of these fit together and the kinds of cancers that they're looking into. Super interesting. When I work from home, on Tuesdays and Fridays, it's usually a little bit more relaxed. I get to do any work that I really want to focus in on that I don't have to do particularly like in the lab. I get to do it on those days. It's super, it's a really nice balance between being in person versus being at home. And on weekends, I get to spend time with my friends and family. I grade assignments for a course, like for a professor, which takes up a bunch of my time. And I also get to work on my startup, which is really exciting and cool. And in terms of why I chose this career, like why am I a software and biomedical engineer here at UHN? Really, a main part of it is I found that this is what interested me. I really like, I in high school I really liked math, but I also really liked sciences, and I wanted something that blended both things together. So not something that was particularly too focused on one thing. I like a little bit of variety in my life, which is why I decided to pursue biomedical engineering because it gives you that. And then in terms of why I'm working here, it's really just the co-op is aligning with my interests. During my first year, I got to work on like a small project on imaging, except it was with PET scanning, and it was really just like a research-based project. Like we didn't do any it was like based off of interest. But I found the entire like imaging and like the novel really aspect of the imaging system that we're working on at the lab super interesting. And so I decided to apply and I got the job, which was super exciting. But also because, like cancer has been something that people have been trying to cure for a really, really long time. There's lots of different foundations and organizations that are raising funds to work on this. But really, like, you can't make any progress on any kind of research without having a bunch of different people from a bunch of different backgrounds working on it. And I really like that multifaceted approach to solving something. I'm not just working with engineers. Every single day I get to, talk to surgeons. I got to go in and see a surgery, which was really cool as an undergrad. So I really like I guess, main key point from all of this is I found the integration of sciences and math and like real life clinical applications super cool. And that's why I'm here.
Thank you, Roa. So many cool things you do. I always excited to see you on site. So, time for our last panelist. Aisha, whenever you are ready, I will spotlight you.
Okay, can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Hi everyone, my name is Aisha Raji, and I am currently a PhD candidate at the Institute of Biomedical Engineering, University of Toronto. And I am also a research trainee at the Kite Research Institute, which is under UHN at the Toronto Rehabilitation Institute. So, oh, sorry. So a little bit about my background. I come from Ogun State in Nigeria, and I have been working at the Rehabilitation Engineering Laboratory and the therapeutic applications of complex systems laboratory for about 4 years now as a research trainee. And some of my hobby includes traveling. So This picture was one of the pictures that I took during one of my journeys to Philadelphia. So I kind of love like how it depicts like I love flying. So that was why I decided to put it here. And then in my spare time, I also crochet, which is a hobby that I started just late last year. And I also read when I have the time. So a little bit about my educational background. I did my undergrad at the University of Ilorin back in Nigeria, where I studied biomedical engineering as well from 2013 to 2018. And the picture on the left-hand side is me being a guinea pig during one of our lab sessions. I think we were just trying to study the electrical activity of the heart during this particular lab session. And on the right is me as a direct PhD student in biomedical engineering at the University of Toronto. So I started my program in 2021, and I am currently trying to hopefully round up this year. So about my research, so my research is focused on trying to help people with stroke regain some of their lost hand functions. And so I'm gonna just walk you a bit through how the brain and hand works. So on a normal day, the brain sends signals the to various parts of the body, including the hand, which we use in different activities of daily living, such as eating, writing, getting dressed, bathing, and the likes. But when there's an injury to the brain, which reduces the blood flow to the brain, that may result into a stroke. And if the injury affects the region that controls the hand, then the individual might may develop paralysis, which reduces the functional ability of the hand. So there are different technologies and ways that people have devised to help people with upper extremity impairments regain some of their lost hand function so that they can be independent. And so we have the manual rehabilitation, which is this situation where the therapist actually helps the individual perform exercises manually in order for them to be able to, regain some of the lost function and be able to use their hands in daily life. And then we also have robotics rehabilitation, which involves the attachment of the hand to robots, and then the robot helps the patient move the hand in space in order to exercise the hand. And they usually present, for example, tasks on screens in order to, engage the patient as well. But over the years, we have realized that the result of robotics rehabilitation is not superior to other forms of therapy. But in our lab, we feel that robots have some characteristics that makes them unique, and we wanted to see like how we can improve robotics rehabilitation of the upper extremity. So for that, I'm currently working on changing how robots are currently being used in rehabilitation. And so one of the things that I'm doing is using this robot to capture how far a person is able to reach in space, and also then present objects at various positions and orientations to then cue them to kind of like try to reach those objects there. So as a form of that, they kind of like get the opportunity to perform functional tasks, which we think may help improve the outcome of robotics rehabilitation. So that's what I do on high level. So a typical week in my life goes, if you don't find me either troubleshooting something on my robot, writing codes, or working on a manuscript, then I'm either analyzing data or reading. And then if I'm not doing any of this, I'm crocheting or baking, which I do sometimes to just tease my siblings. And then so why I chose this career, I chose it in order to better understand neurological conditions such as stroke, and create more effective rehabilitation treatment so that people can live better lives. And I also have some personal connections to this field because my grandma spent like the last 10 years of her life living with stroke. So I sort of like saw how some of her body functions deteriorated before she died. So yeah, that's it. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Aisha. It's always cool to hear robotics. I'm just like, what does that mean? All right, so we are in our Q&A portion. I'm going to bring us all back on the screen. We do have a lot of pre-submitted questions, so I'm just going to start with those ones, and then if more pop up in the chat, I will read those out to you. But the most common question, it was just a really general question of just why engineering in healthcare? Like a lot of students are interested in engineering, but they're like, why did you go for the in the healthcare pathway of engineering? So maybe we can just go in order of speakers for this first round. So Kurt, why?
So for me, originally I wanted to do something in mechanical, but it didn't really work out for me, and I just kind of did a little bit of soul searching. Um, but then during my time while I was playing basketball, I got hurt, so I was in the hospital, and I guess being in the hospital, I got to see the equipment and I guess what it was like being in the hospital in general. And it was kind of my wake up call, like, oh, like I could still do something engineering based, but maybe related back to healthcare, which was kind of a cool little thing for me to, it's like an eye-opening thing for me. So um, I got into the program and started to learn more about uh, the medical field through this program and kind of the cool things that we can do through technology while I'm here in general, even as you could see from my fellow panelists as well. Like there's a lot of cool stuff going on. Uh, so yeah, that was my thing.
I mean, it's an interesting pathway. Roa, how about you?
Yeah, for sure. I think for me, for the longest time, I wanted to do medicine. Like, I wanted to go to med school, and that didn't pan out. Not because of anything, like, I didn't even apply, to be honest. And a major reason for that was it was the entire like lifestyle of going to med school, doing residency just didn't align with what I wanted my life to look like. But I still wanted to be involved somehow in the healthcare field because I was so interested by it. And because, like I mentioned, I like the balance. Like I'm not just looking at, lines of code 24/7, and I'm not just looking at like, science, whatever that entails, or clinical aspects of like being a doctor 24/7. It's kind of like a nice blend between things. Not no 2 days are exactly the same, which is really exciting and interesting because it keeps you on your toes. You're always learning something new. And it's really interesting that way, which is why I ended up in biomedical engineering.
Yeah, another exciting pathway. Aisha, what about you?
I think I have some a similar story to Roa. So I think towards the end of my high school, I sort of like wanted to study computer engineering, but my mom also wanted me to study medicine. But due to the fact that I love medicine, but I don't like seeing blood, so I was like, okay, I don't think medicine is for me. So then my dad told me about biomedical engineering. So I sort of like looked it up and then I found that oh, it's a blend of, the engineering that actually interests me and the medicine that I'm trying to avoid because I don't like blood and also because my mom loved it. So I just thought it was like a good blend. And then I also, really like to see like improvement in people's health and way of life. So it sort of just became what I did, and I've enjoyed the journey so far. And then coupled with the fact that my grandma also had stroke, so it kind of like reinforced the fact that okay, this is your calling. So yeah.
I agree, I'm not a blood person either, so good decision. All right. I see questions kind of about biomedical engineering related to other types of engineering. So I guess students are now thinking about going to university and they're wondering, how is it different from other types of engineering? Harder, easier? Maybe Roa, you can attempt this.
Yeah, for sure. I will say it is slightly more intense than like a regular engineering stream. Not for anything particular, just because you're doing software engineering and like for me at least, I'm doing software engineering, but like I guess in general you'd be doing engineering and then also biomedicine and biomedical engineering. You have more courses, you have to cover more content, like and you're covering everything that the engineering stream does and some of the health sciences courses as well. So it's a little bit more intense in terms of like workload. But I would say it really like I did summer courses to try and lighten up my workload. I've had some really easy semesters and some semesters that have kicked my butt. But at the end of the day, like in the moment it feels like grades are this like super big defining thing, but they're really not. You can have one bad grade and completely be fine. So there will be hard courses, there will be easier courses. In terms of the actual like content, um, like I said, it's not really different than regular engineering for the most part. You do basically all of the regular engineering courses, at least at McMaster you do. And then on top of that, we did things like, anatomy and we took biochemistry beyond just the regular chemistry that you take in first year. But also as you're reaching more like senior levels or like I guess later years is a better term to use, you start taking courses that are like, for example, and I didn't start fourth year, but I did take some courses early to get them out of the way. So I took a course called Biomedical Control Systems where you learn about control systems, but from a biomedical sense, right? So things like thermoregulation and stuff. Whereas the regular engineering stream learned about control systems or would learn about control systems from like a different perspective, if that makes sense. So some of the courses start to become more tailored to biomedical engineering later on. But generally speaking, it's just essentially just taking courses from two departments and blending them together.
That was good. That even answered another question about what do you like your program? How's the program? And I think we understood that. Seems like you're enjoying your program.
I am enjoying my program.
All right. Students also want to know, where did you volunteer when you were in high school and university? Is that important? Like, do I need to volunteer to get into a higher level program and get a job? Maybe Aisha, what about you? Tell us about where you volunteered, if you volunteered.
So I'm not really sure I'm the right person to answer this question because I had my undergrad education in Nigeria. But I think like volunteering in general is really important because through that you get to learn like some skills that you can actually use in work in the workplace. So for example, if you get to work with a team, then get to develop, team working skills, communication skills. And in biomedical engineering, at least in my own field, I tend to work with people from different professions. So for example, I work with therapists, I work with other clinicians as well and engineers. So you get to like be able to work with people within different fields and get things done. So I will say yes, volunteering is important, but I think maybe Kurt could, say more about it in this.
Yeah, I mean, volunteering is always good because it gives you a chance to get out there and meet people, depending on where you're volunteering, but you'd want the experience to learn from others in the field, and any experience is really really valuable for any young person wanting to come up. In regards uh, for what you're doing leading into college or university, if you can volunteer in related jobs or um, really like anything just to get some experience under your belt, like I I'd definitely say it's super important if you can get any volunteer work for sure.
Yeah, and to add on, I think it's been kind of mentioned, but it's a lot more about like quality of what you're doing and not quantity. So don't be signing up for 10 clubs and trying to do all of them. That's not going to be worthwhile for you. especially when you are applying for programs and things as you go into grad school, they care more about what did you do when you were part of a club? Did you become a leader? Did you lead an event? How long have you committed your time there? They want to see that you care about something and have put your time and effort into it. It doesn't have to be in the STEM field. Obviously, if you love STEM, go volunteer for a STEM club. But just volunteering for anything in general is always good to like make an impact in your community one way or another. All right, we got some technical questions now. Oh my God. Okay, let's try the first one that I'm seeing. A lot of questions about artificial intelligence. Is it impacting engineering? Can we prepare for this change? Will AI take over engineering jobs? Like a whole thing. So who wants to tackle AI and engineering? Who is ready for that question?
Oh man, that's a tough one. I guess maybe I can
Go
take
ahead.
I'll say something and then who knows. I think like we're getting to a point where for sure you can use AI to like for example, if your job if you want to write a very simple chunk of code, you can get ChatGPT to do it very easily, right? So like if that's your only job, then yeah, it would be replaceable. But I think the reality of it is a lot of people's jobs aren't just, word vomiting out just very simple lines of code. There's a lot of nuance that goes into it that I think AI doesn't always get the full picture of. And so you can't always rely on it to understand exactly what you're trying to get across or to do exactly what you needed to do. That's where like the human touch of things comes into play. So I don't think we're necessarily going to be like losing jobs. I do think that some jobs will start to look a little bit different as like maybe people don't have to spend as much time doing certain things and they can start focusing on different things. So maybe there will be like a little bit of a transition with the introduction of AI. I'm not sure how that would look like a couple of years down the line. But I do think that, as humans, we are contributing. I mean, like, who's developing the AI, right? It's still humans that are working on it. So it's just going to be like different kinds of jobs, but still jobs within the computer engineering, software engineering type of field, I think.
Okay, so don't be scared. Anyone else want to ease their minds? Aisha?
Yes, so I can just add to that. I agree with what she said, and then I think in research there's something we call like integrity. So it's what you actually know also really matters because you understand the research field better than the AI. The AI can just probably give you like a generic answer, but you still have to do the work, right? And then so in research, I believe like AI can just be used to, support or augment you as like an assistant exactly in your work. So it's not like AI is gonna replace your work. And then I think AI is also like a sensitive topic, especially in healthcare, because we're dealing with life. So I feel like yeah, AI is not taking anyone's job anytime soon. Right.
Yay, we're just learning more. This is good. All right, I do have some specific questions for each of you. Let's see. Kurt, we got a question for you. As an engineer, how do you deal with setbacks? Do you get setbacks? How do you deal with them?
Yeah, I mean, you'll have setbacks here and there. Like you have to sometimes come across a problem where how do I deal with it, right? Like how do I solve this issue or solve the problem? It's a little bit like you need to kind of like step back. If you have a team around you, someone to consult, you can refer to other people or um, look at your own notes, notes that you may have taken, because someone will have experiences that could maybe they've experienced something like something you've seen, or and you can kind of take some ideas from that. Um, Other setbacks, oh gosh, like I'm trying to think of an example of something that really held me down. I mean, it'll really vary because on in the job, like Roa said, like every day is different, so you kind of have to be able to adapt and try to look at the big picture. Um, because you might not have the answer at first, but using the resources available to you to kind of work on what, or I guess trying to find out what to do, uh, that's kind of available for us as people in the workplace or even students. So yeah.
Can I just add one more thing to
Yeah.
that? Also, I think I agree with what Kurt said, and I think um it might also have to do with, changing one's perspective. Because personally, I believe like failure is part of life and it's part of growth. And so if we don't fail, so personally, I say that we don't fail, we just discover like another way to that does not work. So, one other way that doesn't work, and then you try other ways to see like what the solution is, if to see if they'll actually work or not. And I think like as someone that write like codes every day, I think Roa can also attest to this. Like, trust me, failure is part of the whole journey. So yeah.
But you will survive. They're saying you will survive it. All right, question for you, Roa. Is university a big jump compared to high school? Like, how is it different versus the same?
For sure. Um, that's a good question. I think it depends on the kind of courses that you took in high school. For me, I took a lot of APs, I know. But that meant that, for example, my first semester starting in university wasn't as bad as it could have been. For example, the first calculus course I took was, I think I would say like 90% stuff that I had already covered in high school. So like with that course at the very least, I was having like a good time because I didn't have to like worry about it as much. Especially when you first start in university. I mean, like a university campus is so much bigger than your high school campus. It's like a little bit overwhelming. You're meeting new people every day. You're learning how to interact with professors who may not know all of their students as closely as maybe a high school teacher would. So a lot of I think the jump and the difference between like high school and university really comes from like a social aspect of things. And then on top of that, you're taking all of these courses that, maybe you're familiar with the content, maybe you're not familiar with the content. So that kind of like exacerbates, I'm not saying that word right, but it makes, the situation maybe a little bit more stressful for you. Um, I think in terms of, like I'm not going to like sugarcoat this. I did struggle a little bit in first year, especially when it came to courses like, for example, physics. Not because I was a good physics student in high school, right? But then when you get to university, it's, not to stress you out, but it's like you're taking lectures and then you're doing labs and you're doing tutorials. So the workload gets like a little bit harder. Um, and for me, at the very least, I did it right in 2021. So there was like COVID hybrid situation going on. So there was like the stress of like being at home versus coming to campus, that made things worse. I do think it's very manageable. I think it's manageable as long as you accept that you won't always get, some people do get the grades that they got in high school. Most people, I would say, don't. And that's completely okay. Especially your first 2 years, they're not going to be the easiest. I would say, like, for me, I started getting like good, like, basically grades comparable to my like high school grades, like when I started third year. Third year was a really good year for me, to be honest. But like first and second year were definitely like a transition year for me. But that's most people go through that, and that's okay. Like, don't stress if you start getting grades that are maybe lower than you were expecting, because everybody goes through
Again, you will learn.
it. Yes.
All right, question for you, Aisha. Coming from Nigeria, did you face difficulty with acceptance? And did you have to redo/retake anything in Canada? Or did they just accept all your background knowledge from Nigeria?
Um, that's actually a great question. So yes, I had to like take courses because my program required me to like take courses. I had to like offer at least 6 courses to meet the requirements of my program. But I also had like I was able to like use the knowledge that I gained during my undergrad in um in my program. So while I would say yes, I was able to, bring my background from Nigeria into the Canadian system, I also had to learn how the Canadian system also works. So yes, I had to learn, and yes, I brought things from Nigeria as well.
You did it. Okay, we have a general question for all of you again. So yay, back to all of you. They're asking if engineering has changed your perspective on actions you take daily. Has it changed the way you behave or things that you do on a daily basis, what you're learning, I guess? I don't know who wants to go first. Kurt, how about you? Are you the same before and after your job?
Um, I'd say it's kind of because my job kind of has me questioning things, I guess. It's a lot of questioning and like how does this work or like what causes this system to operate this way? Like it's a lot of being presented with something and uh trying to get my head around like, oh, like okay, this is how this connects with this to make an overall system work. So it's something that I've kind of grew up with as a kid. Like I enjoyed like taking things apart and putting them together. So um it kind of translated into what I do now, which is taking things apart and seeing seeing how they work, right? So I think that's the same in in my everyday life. So that's just how I operate at least.
What about you, Roa? Anything changed?
I will say engineering, definitely things have changed. Before I guess started my like university degree in McMaster, I was definitely somebody who was a little bit more like I like to study. Like if I'm studying for a test, I didn't really like to like go to a library with friends to study. I like to just do it by myself in my room because I felt like I focused better. I will say like when starting engineering, just with the like stress of it all, it definitely like helped me to be around people when I was stressed. So like I started, for example, like joining study groups and like I started hanging out in the library with my friends to study. And maybe it wasn't always the best decision. Sometimes we did go, you know, didn't really focus very well. But I do think it taught me that, I'm going to be learning things for the rest of my life as an engineer even. Um, it's always more fun to learn with somebody else than it is to just learn by yourself. So I think I've started to, yeah, like when I started my degree, I started to appreciate just learning together rather than learning alone.
All right. Aisha, what about you?
I'll say yes, engineering has definitely changed some aspect of my life. And so, for example, like I think with engineering, I learned like some skills, for example, like problem solving, and also engineering forces you to gain that teamwork skill through the projects that you're given in school. So you, even if you're like an introverted introvert just like me, trust me, you will learn how to, work with different people and work with different teams. And I also think that it also helps me in my analytical thinking as well, because you have to like do a lot of thinking in order to, get the problem solved. And then I feel like as the higher you go, the more um the more problems you need to solve. And then, some of the skills that I've learned over my engineering journey have been really helpful in shaping who I am. And I still currently use some of those skills till today. Yeah. And I think one of the great skills is also like communication skills. Like soft skills they're really, really important. Okay.
Yeah, sadly, you gotta have soft skills, not just technical skills. All right, so I guess students are also asking, you all seem very busy. Do you have a work-life balance? Do you have a life? They're hoping you do, I'm assuming. But Roa, do you have a life?
I mean, I would say I have a life, yes. Yeah, like I mean, with everything, there are always times in your life where you're busy other times in your life, but I think that's just a thing that happens regardless of what you do. Like as a student, for example, I'm busier during midterm season and it feels like I don't have a life because I'm always studying or doing assignments. But then, like you finish your last exam and then it's, well, you don't really have anything else to do and now you have a life. I do think like there is a balance that you need to learn yourself. Like there's always going to be like things that come up. It just is up to you to decide whether it's something that's worth your effort and worth your energy or whether it's better for you to not do something. And sometimes, not to be a bad influence, but like sometimes that's like things like, for example, signing up for events or signing up for like activities that you're doing. But sometimes it's like, well, I have, a tutorial assignment that's worth 1% of my grade, but I have been studying all day or I've been working nonstop all week. Do I really need to do this? You have to like learn how to set your own schedule because when you start university, you're an adult, right? So like the actions that you make reflect on whatever you want out of your life. Um, so it's really up to you to set that work-life balance. I think I have it. I'm able to set my own work-life balance, but it's important to not let yourself get too caught up in what you should be doing versus what you want to be doing.
Kurt, do you have a life?
Um, for me, it's pretty good. I'd say my work life is pretty good. Uh, again, I play sports, so after work, I join like intramurals here. There's intramurals nearby. I join um I join a basketball league. It's like having time for sports and activities while also having time to come into work. Maybe I'll sacrifice my sleep because I commute like to Scarborough every day. So um but most of that's spent commuting, but otherwise so long like Roa said, like you kind of have to find what's valuable to you and whether it's worth your time to or energy putting into what you want to do. That's dependent on everybody because everyone's different and everyone has their own circumstances, and you'll come across some good things, some bad, but you'll try to find that balance, that equilibrium that we all need to live live life. So yeah.
Right, two of us have a life. Aisha, do you have a life?
I think I'll say now I have a life. Because when I first came to Canada, for example, I didn't know like, so I came during in the midst of the lockdown. So I basically did not know anyone apart from my supervisors, right? So and everything was virtual. So I was just like, it was just me, myself, in my room, on my laptop. So back then, like I developed, that me, myself, my room, my laptop, kind of life. So I didn't have a life. But I think like late last year, I set the intention to, start having more life. So over the years, I've also like tried to, learn one or two sports every semester. But I think the intention that I set this year is to go out with my friends more than I used to, and then also enroll in more sports in order to, balance my life because we all need that work-life balance. And just like the other panelists have said, you have to decide what work-life balance looks like for you. Because what works for you may not work for me, but we all need it.
Right, yes, we're all balanced. Yay. All right, I have a specific question for you, Aisha, so back to you. They think that your research is very, very cool, but they want to go know like where is it going now? Like what happens when you finish your degree? Like what are you going to do with all of your knowledge?
Oh wow. Thank God I figured that out late last year. Okay, so my research right now is so right now we're still doing like the clinical part of the whole research, trying to recruit participants to see how the robot actually works, if it's something that we can commercialize or not. And at the end of the day, we also want it to, we're also looking into maybe using it as a home rehabilitation stuff so that therapists or patients won't have to, so that patient won't have to go to the hospital or therapists go to, the patient's home in order to help them become more independent. And so for me, after grad school, I think I want to go into the medical device industry because developing medical technology is something that I've come to fall in love with over the years. And I just feel like a lot of people also depend on it. And when I see people like people's lives get improved as a result of, all this medical technology, it just gives me like this joy of, yes, I'm contributing something significant to the world.
It's a really cool project, I will admit. All right, Kurt, we have a question for you. So they heard you talk about Project Aspire. They're like, where will this go? Like, what is the benefit of this new big fancy tower with all of this equipment?
Yeah, it's so it'll allow for more space in the hospitals because we'll be getting more surgeries out, uh more state-of-the-art equipment will be used for more procedures, and the Western's well known for their neural programs, so it's a lot of cool stuff in that regard being pushed out there. So I can't go into too much details, but um, it's hopefully in 2028 we'll see a lot of cool things moving forward. So, and there's like a lot of there's gonna be some nice views up there too for the patients. So it's it'll be fun. It should be a good time, I would think.
Exciting. It's always exciting
Yeah.
when we have new buildings. So,
Yeah, for sure.
all right, we have time for one more question. This one is for you, Roa. They want to know, is co-op worth it? Is it useful for building an engineering career? Should I do co-op? Tell us.
100%, I would say. I mean, like, I'm sure you could do a degree without a co-op and probably still be able to find a job. I personally think that it would be a little bit more difficult. Just because doing a co-op just shows employers that you're able to have a job and hold a job and, do well in it and like, accomplish the things that you accomplish in your co-op reflect well on the skills that you've built up throughout your undergraduate career, and just your ability to be a professional in the field, right? So I do think it more than anything, more than like maybe the technical skills that you'll learn, which you will learn and as part of a co-op, you will learn a lot of, what is expected of you. How are you supposed to, you know, work with other people in a research lab if you do a co-op in a research lab versus, if you do a co-op in maybe like in more so industry type of setting, right? Like a corporate job, right? Like how are you expected to act and what's work look like in that setting versus another setting? I think co-op really gives you that opportunity to learn those skills, but also on top of that, being able to, spend your summers doing internships and co-ops at these places helps you learn like what you enjoy. Are you somebody who enjoys research more? Are you somebody who enjoys having lots of Zoom meetings and lots of like, maybe not so like technical components, but lots of like working in an office job type of situation? I think being able to do that in your undergraduate is a really huge opportunity, and I think anybody who can should, because this is your chance to try things out and see what you like and what you don't like without having the stress of, like, I need to find a full-time job so that I can pay my bills, so that I can, be a grown adult after I've graduated. So definitely would recommend. You learn a lot.
Perfect. Do it. Just do it.
Yes.
All right, so we're nearing the end of the event. So I'm going to ask you one question, but in the meantime, Trisha, can you launch the exit poll? As a reminder, you must do the exit poll if you want credit for the certificate program. It'll just ask you a few questions on like the topics we discussed today. So hopefully you remember some of the terms like Project Aspire, etc. But feel free to fill this out. In the meantime, I have my final question for all of you. Can you give them a one sentence piece of advice? Very hard to only say one sentence, but one sentence piece of advice as they brainstorm what they want to do with their, I guess, life and career. So, Kurt, I'm gonna make you go first. One sentence. Good luck.
Sorry, one sentence for which
Piece
again,
of
sorry?
advice on like their life or their career journey.
Keep learning. Keep learning more and asking questions.
Nice and short and sweet. Roa, your turn.
This is hard. Um, don't be afraid to put yourself out there. Very classic.
The good one. Aisha, what about you?
Mine is also similar to Roa's. Is get out of your comfort zone because you don't grow in your comfort zone.
It was perfect. Always when I ask this panelist, give me three sentences, but you all gave me one, so this was good. All right, so I'm gonna do some wrap-up slides, but thank you, panelists. This was great. This was fun. Hopefully we'll see you again, but let me do the wrap-up slides so we can end the event on time. Okay, so thank you all of you for coming to our yet another one of our career panels. So in case you don't know, our team is UHN STEM Pathways. We host both virtual as well as in-person events throughout the school year, as well as some in the summer. But you can learn about all of our programs on our website, UHNSTEMPathways.ca. And we also post things on social media. So you can also just check us out on LinkedIn or on our Twitter/X, whatever we're calling it now.